Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another mod stream. We're back in action working on some HYDRA stuff today. As part of the classic plug that I always do when I release content and throw up a mod stream here, we'll first talk about this epic Perfectionism's Kryptonite Dad Caw. I think it's actually probably one of the most important dad caws I've ever produced in that sense, because it was a real breakthrough for me personally, and that fueled the creation of this video. So it's only about 10 minutes. If you haven't given it a listen, might be of interest to you. And switching gears to a little bit of a longer video that's going on an hour 40. There's a Street Dog podcast dropped earlier today where Dynamo and I sat down to discuss Grand Theft Auto 5, which is why the episode is, of course, titled Grand Theft Gameplay, because indeed there was a lot of theft there and not a whole lot of gameplay left over afterwards. So that might be of interest if you're into that sort of thing, into that sort of game, or just want to hear us talk some shit for a little while. So there you go. That all being said, we of course have plenty of work to get done. A lot of work has actually already begun and been happening. In fact, a very exciting change recently was the fact that we were able to get a decent amount of progress made on stability fixes and improvements. There do seem to be a little bit of residual issues that we haven't resolved. I'm not saying that everything is fixed and everything's fine. I haven't even really been able to test like multiplayer stability to verify that none of the refactors and changes have introduced new desyncs, or the fact that, you know, whether or not the lag has been resolved in that sense either when playing over Radmin at the very least. So we have yet to resolve some of these things. We have yet to make sure that everything is kosher in that respect, because we're still working on finalizing some of the crashes themselves, which are obviously a little bit more pernicious, because if it interrupts even single player content, then there's no point really in checking out the multiplayer stuff. Once again, though, the AI is really the main cause of all of these crashes, and it looks like we were able to track down one case where, due to CCMU not being checked for, the unit limit not being checked for in-game, there are certain functions that create units and then initialize AI values in those units if it's an AI unit that didn't essentially have the CCMU case there, that would then pass garbage data elsewhere and cause corruptions, which is why it was so difficult to track down, in fact. Insofar as until recently, we didn't even really have the tools to trace back that kind of thing and maybe put two and two together. So yeah, things have been shaping up, and we've obviously been updating quite a bit of the tech tree as well. While we're waiting on these stability fixes, my mind continues to wander and come up with ways to improve the overall craft of the product and make sure that the balance is in a better state, and make sure that the abilities are in more exciting implementations that are a little bit more skill testing instead of being point and click, for example. So a recent example of that is the Seraph Irradiate spell being now tied to a missile, which is essentially a skill shot, a fire and forget shot that you have to kind of anticipate, and it creates a radiation field where when it impacts, there's room for anybody to sort of walk in there and then get tagged with radiation. So that's an idea that we've had, and essentially turning it into a more of a crowd control type thing, but also area denial is a bit of a different look for the ability, but also increasing the skill, the opportunity for counterplay, but also the opportunity for actual gameplay in the first place. So that's obviously a net positive change that we're still working on, and hopefully by the time we actually ship this very large patch, that will be fully implemented. What's up, UNS? How you doing? I delayed this stream a little bit because I was actually watching the Blast 9Z upset Vitality. But the online era does make all of those upsets a little bit less exciting, I have to be honest. And even then, it didn't really look convincing after the first half. It was a little bit rocky for them. So before I start working on my map, I actually want to look through the current patch documentation. And I want to make sure that I update the wording on the website and also in the actual data file, of course, for the tooltips and stuff. So for example, for Irradiate, so we'll say launches a missile that creates a radiation field at on impact, afflicting any target that walks through it with deadly radiation. That deals 125 damage to shields and organic targets. I don't know about the mechanical flag here. I think maybe what we might do is we might just change it so that it's concussive damage, so that disproportionately mechanical units just don't take as much. But especially with the whole shields thing, the fact that it would interact with shields on even or like mechanical units kind of muddies the waters there a little bit. I actually didn't have any performance issues with the second game, so. Well, 3 is the magic number, you know. Yeah, I didn't have any performance issues, so I guess you should try to like disable anything that's running in the background or whatever, but I don't know much about that game or how performance has whether or not like it was massively made worse from the remaster. I guess that's something that I can ask about in my Discord server because there's some people who are more familiar with that. I guess the value will have to be smaller too. It'll have to be like maybe 50 damage over 5 seconds or something. Let's say 50 explosive or concussive. Concussive damage over 5 seconds. All right, so that refactor seems fine, and that number is basically an estimation anyway, so we will have to see where that goes. I feel like for the most part, though, that should at least be a superior version of the ability anyway. So that's what I'll be happy about. So let's take this. Oh, I misspelled launches. Talk about your English breaking. Target that walks through it. Okay. I guess we could also call this, instead of irradiate, we could call this radiation field or something, but or rad zone or something cool. But I'll think about that later. That's less important than actually getting the ability to work. I don't really get the Wait, is there a set? Oh yeah, that was something that was making me really confused about that matchup, is that they have a Brazilian bit or something, or a South American bit or something. Oh, he's not spelled with a 1, so that's how it's done. It's pretty frustrating. I also do not envy the Launders and Scrawny who had to cast that series, where they have a guy named Try. Jesus. But they handled it like the consummate professionals that they are, where you didn't even know that, you know, for the most part they didn't sound like they were perplexed or put off or whatever. So. All right. I'm trying to think about what else we may have changed recently. What a nice point. You've given up on watching CS completely? the content that people are making about CS is actually still pretty fun. I guess maybe a little bit less so the raw analysis, because again, I can't really get as invested into the game as I used to be able to. But I don't know. For me, like listening to By the Numbers, listening to like interviews, I guess, or whatever, that stuff is still pretty nice. It's still pretty pretty fun. But yeah, I'm not massively excited, I'll say, about how that's been put together so far. Like the actual games themselves. Oh yeah, this is actually what's causing the break. This is... Why would I be waiting for... I guess I can do EX jump 0? So if you don't have any towns, don't bother getting production. I think that's what I was intending there. Just like if you don't have any main structures, then that's fine. So that should fix the AI for like Zerg, because they were obviously kind of busted earlier. All right. And the other thing that I was looking for in this current patch is, I know I wanted to change hallucination. I don't remember if I actually did in the thing here. Yeah, it still has the old description, so we'll go ahead and change that up. Protoss, Cantavis, hallucination. Fires a Cybolt that. Creates a... This will be a separate sentence. This is any ally that attacks afflicted targets receives a single illusory copy. That deals half damage. Okay. Fires a Cybolt that creates a field... Well, a dazing zone, causing any targets okay. To hallucinate. This is a pretty long description, but I can also remove one of the passives as a result of this. So. RPK, MBK, bit, and every other Nexa Nico. Why does that destroy you? You. Why does that destroy you? And then you appears. What's up, dude? How's my roller skater going? What's up? My name is Lowell. The simulation responses are spreading as expected. U turns into 3. 3 turns into me. I am the 3-born man crow. I have to run and find hallucination. Here we go. I guess the other thing, though, is that we'll say 4 10 seconds. And this is a shorter and more precise way of framing this anyway, so that's fine. Oh shit! Yeah, I guess that's like a regional thing then. That's pretty cool, roller skates. I should have streamed yesterday, so you could have said it was in 3 days. But you could also delay your birthday to make it 3 if you wanted to, just perpetually. It's always 3. So we're actually going to delete that, the ephemeral blades thing, because that's covered in the hallucination description now, so we're condensing. Where's my Fraud Club site? Abilities, Protoss. And then we have to go to the actual Cantavis. And... I don't know where my shit went. I think I accidentally closed it. Whatever. Check me out. This is... Boom. Okay. The other thing is maybe hallucination itself should probably be like... I don't know if it should be a higher energy cost. I guess by reducing the timer of the effect, the duration of the effect, that's probably fine. Since now it's only a 10-second effect. But maybe it'll be really strong. I don't know. So we've changed some stuff up there to reflect maybe not the exact implementation of the current changes, but at least a where we want to be. Latin X. I heard that was the new way you're supposed to say it. Got him. I do need a different tank graphic than what I have for the railgun tank right now. Claymore. It's pretty terrible. I'll have to look for one later. Yeah, I was gonna say, do you have any actual plans? Yeah, that seems like a very strange issue. And not one that I would suspect would happen. I can't remember if phalanxes was actually proper. I know phalanges is a thing, but I think phalanxes is also an accepted term or something. That is the classic one, UNS. When you have like this obscure issue and you finally find somebody like 10 fucking Google pages deep. Oh, he's got my issue. I mean, he's like nobody gets it. He never gets any response. Oh yeah, never mind. Found effects and doesn't actually document what it is. Fuck that. Punch him. Yeah, it feels like something like maybe you're running it without like DirectX or I don't even know what that game uses. I don't remember. I only played it like one time, but I didn't have any performance issues. So now deals 50 concussive damage to all units. We'll say effect now deals now spreads its effect from a damage field that be a missile. Now creates a effective field on impact. There's got to be some sort of like software based conflict if I had to guess. I unfortunately don't have any idea what it could be. Yeah, I guess that could be the case because obviously they are usually pretty lazy with their shit, but I can't believe Valve actually unbanned people. That's crazy. Yampy can come back. VSM can actually play, I think. I don't remember. It's of course in classic Valve fashion where it's just a mess, so. All right, I think I've documented everything that I needed to document. Let's pull these changes. Hey, I didn't push them first. All right, update abilities. Wording. Reasonable. Okay. So I think we're good there. What a busted ass program. So I will save and close. And obviously for irradiate, that doesn't even really matter since it wasn't using that, but maybe it will now or something. Oh yeah. Would probably help if I didn't have that open. Units, weapons, they are. course, I don't know why I didn't reset that after I found the actual issue. Okay, and then I will go ahead and add that again. And then I have to go into the Cantavis. Oh, that's funny. I actually didn't even realize this, but I didn't even have ephemeral blades listed because there's so many fucking buttons on this thing already. So that's pretty nice. Whatever. Okay, we're good then. I'll just close this. And I have to put these in here again. Okay, fix our production freezing and tweak irradiate damage. 5 instead only. Hey man, that's something you gotta do sometimes. You gotta get to the bottom of stuff like that. Okay. Well, I just spent the first 37 minutes of this broadcast obviously not working on the map that I thought I was going to focus most of today's stream on, but that's okay because we got some other work done. So anyway, I've got 3 out of 6 players placed so far. I did work on this map a little bit since the last time I streamed working on it. I was just sort of fiddling around with some of the asphalt and started piecing together some of the content over here. Like put this ramp over here, you know, all that shit. I haven't done too much detailing or anything. Obviously, that's going to come as time goes on, but this whole top strip is now like essentially the main target, I guess. I think there's a pretty good shot that he actually does try to come back, to be honest. Since he clearly had the skills and people were even interested in him with the VAC ban, the fact that he's got that resolved is... I mean, I don't imagine there would be an issue now, besides maybe like contract issues or whatever with his Valorant squad. I don't even know who he plays for. Oh, I think it's like Liquid or something, right? That could have been a pretty banging lineup. Yeah, I agree with that. I especially think that, assuming Issa was actually a significant portion of their communication issues, then I don't think NBK has as much conflicts with Alexi B, if that makes any sense. Which I'm not even really sure if those were cited at all as like a reason for him benching, but I just assumed that they had a different vision, and I feel like that wouldn't have that kind of issue would not have cropped up nearly as much had the other communication been solid. If they essentially would have been able to focus on the NBK Alexi B shit a little bit more, I think, and actually figure out what to do there when they could focus on that. So yeah, I think that would have actually changed a lot, but unfortunately, um, I don't know. Really, there's so many players you could have put in place of Issa, and it makes sense for them to have tried to stick with that core due to land stuff. But at some point, you gotta cut the shit. And Flames looks like a really nice pickup so far with their limited debut, and even before they actually debuted, I thought, oh yeah, that's a solid replacement. So I guess Mihu's going to EG, which is an interesting pivot, but obviously Mihu's got experience with NA lineups and orgs with Envy, so he's not in like completely unknown territory for him. I've originally linked to OG in the first place before they picked up Flames, so we'll see how that all shapes up. So I think before I jump straight into this stuff, I will take a quick break to go get some more water, use the bathroom, all that stuff. And I'll try to flesh out this midsection where one of the Protoss players is going to be starting from, this blue player. We'll see what kind of cover I can shape around this area. And I think another major point is going to be like connective tissue from this into I guess, the yellow Terran territory. That's going to dictate how much spacing there is and all that stuff. But it's pretty clear I want the main to be up against this like little magma ridge. That's obviously where I've been moving this guy towards. So that should be his main. That should be easy enough to put together, and then I can kind of supplement the surrounding area with cover and another base and see what exactly I want to do there. So there's a high likelihood that rather than worry about having AI start out with like essentially begin in the map in the middle of the map as opposed to just starting out, I'll probably just start them out with the classic 4 worker start. I guess the concern is that in theory a player could like decide to rush them down or something, but if they do that, then they're allowing the Terrans who have some pre-placed presence to consolidate their forces, and I think that's actually a really bad idea, generally speaking. So I think I'll probably just have these guys have essentially all arrived at relatively similar times, and you've got a couple of players who have a preeminent pre-established force, a pre-placed brigade, and that's basically it. So yeah, I think the player will have their hands full dealing with the 1v2 startup, and they'll essentially be like having to be aggressive against one, try to isolate either one of these guys. But I guess isolating this guy is going to be harder positionally, but I'm not even really sure if that's true because this guy's got this. I guess it depends on your composition. If you go air units, you could probably butcher this man, or like transporting or something, since you negate that high ground advantage. Whereas this guy's a little bit more dug in and will probably have a little bit more than he currently has in the early stages of the game anyway. So anyway, I'll muse on that while I take my pee break and shall return momentarily. You actually, Luciferius. Peaceferius. Yo, 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 I'm back. And I am changing the fucking music, homie. All right. So, let's do what I was just talking about. Changing some stuff up. I guess one thing that could be kind of interesting is also having resources along that ledge over here. This little ridge. Not sure about this one, but so infuriating that I actually need to copy and paste this stuff because Blizzard is too lazy to actually make it properly. What a mess. I like that one. That's a good one. Jesus. Good banter. Good banter coming out of fraudsclub.com/Discord, which doesn't actually exist, but you get the idea. There you go. Now we'll slap together the stuff over here. I guess the main issue with this current setup is that this is actually pretty hard base to hold on to, so should probably have some more reward. I guess maybe it's not that impossible, but I would be... It depends on how I shape this area. I guess if I sort of like push this back in and make this like a courtyard almost that you pass through, it might not be that big of a deal. There we go. Yeah, I think that will work out and will be a little bit marginally more defensible than I initially thought. Because I was actually expecting there to be like a ramp right here. Instead, it looks like the ramp will be like over here and maybe over here. And that's how we'll sort of engineer some more interaction between that. So we'll save that for a little bit later. I want to focus a little bit more to the west of this whole area. All right, the other thing that I have got to solve, I guess, is there going to be a base over here? Because it feels like there should be. This kind of area or this size of an area not having a base and yet being so surrounded by pathways or potential pathways, eventual pathways when I finish detailing the area is something that I think only really works out when you have a lot of different ways that you can go. And because this is up against the map border, I don't think it flies. I don't think it does the same thing. I don't think it has the same effect. So I think that's a component of this that feels a little missing. Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see where we go, I guess. But for now, I guess the only concern I really would have is that I basically have two ideas for how to progress here. One of them would be to put a base there, and the other one would be to leave it open and have it be like this nice courtyard. But I don't think the courtyard has as much significance if it's a side pathway. Like it's why I've tried to make the centerpiece and the surrounding areas very, more or less pretty open and pretty open-ended, flexible. And then as you get further towards the outer lying areas, like the left, bottom, and right areas, right, are the ones that actually have detailing in them so far. And so you can kind of see that the pathways peter out and become a little bit more straightforward. And that kind of gives you that natural direction. So I'm hoping that it works out in the same way over here. But for now, I guess we'll just pull this out here. And what this could be in theory is a nice little bit of extra work done with like the high dirt or whatever. All right, see you later, roller skates. And if I don't see you in 2 days, happy birthday, dude. Thanks for stopping by. All right, so we pretty clearly want a base over here. Okay. How do I want to handle this one then? Probably. The question is, do I want the base on the high ground, the higher dirt, or do I want it just to be a border? It's probably the latter because I don't really have a huge amount of real estate. Like this area will obviously be a high dirt base, and that'll actually be kind of nice that it's. I think it'll be the only one in the whole game and the whole map. That doesn't have to be the case. Like certainly you could have more, but it's just a thought. So yeah, I'm already liking the strategic diversity that is afforded by having more gases in some of these bases and having like a 3 gas and a 4 gas base, even like having these be a little bit more frequent is pretty interesting. Maybe I am overdoing it a little bit with the 2 gas bases being a bit more common, but I feel like there is a pretty good argument for it. And I also feel like I haven't made any of the bases like supremely easy to hold unless they actually do have a little bit of a lack of resources, relatively speaking. Like this base is a bit easier to hold even though it's cramped, but it only has 1 gas. And then you've got like this base down here that's maybe not even that easy to hold since you have to maintain some upper construction area. There is this mineral only that I don't actually know that much about. Like I'm not 100% confident. And I guess I could fix this anyway by just slapping a geyser here. Although that probably, yeah, of course it binds it to the other one. And then the problem with this is obviously that it's super vulnerable as a gas. And maybe that's just the bit though. Like maybe that's how it plays out. I don't really like that it blocks so much pathfinding, and we are kind of limited in what we can achieve here. Maybe something like that will do it. And I guess I can also pull out one of those mineral fields as a result. And just move it over there. Because this is a pretty tough base to actually hold on to. So it doesn't really make sense to make it low yield. You kind of want to judge an expansion based off of how much resources. Like resources can be more than just minerals and gas. It's also build space. And then how well connected it is to everything else. And then obviously how defensible it is. And those are like 3 of the main categories, but there's obviously a couple more that you could break it down to. The main idea is like, how hard is it to defend versus how much reward do you get versus Well, I guess those are like the main things, but also versus like what does it provide you with position to parlay into something further on the map. And that last one is technically a resource, I guess you could break it down to being, but I think of it differently because you're not really spending that as much as you are just trying to capitalize upon it existing. Destroyed. Hmm. Okay. So you get a nice straight shot over here, although maybe it's a little bit too obvious. Maybe we do something like... here we go. Now we're getting somewhere, I think. All right. And it's offset a little bit. You can kind of cheekily put some units up there to take advantage of some high ground. And I kind of want to extend this a little bit further than I initially expected, just to offer a bit more gameplay space. Oh, that's the wrong one. Scroll back up. Okay. We can slap this in here. So we'll do a little bit of a complex geometry here. We want that. We want... there we go. Okay, so the only real concern I have with this formation is that this does feel a little tight up against the edge, and I'll probably add a little bit of sparse cliffing or whatever to sort of guide the player down there. So maybe what ends up happening is I pull this out a couple of tiles on this side of the cliff, and then I just sort of copy paste the whole thing and move it to the right couple tiles. That is something I'm open to doing. For now, we will just finish sealing up the deal with the main texture up here so that it has the right appearance and height values. And then we'll place the expansion here, and then we'll move on to the lower level because that will give me a bit of a better look, I think. So I was thinking that it made natural sense to have the expansion up against this bottom cliff. I guess it still does make natural sense. So my initial complaint was that it felt a little bit too bottom heavy in terms of like, oh yeah, you're naturally going to be favored if you're taking this from the south. But that's not true because you can just run straight up here and destroy your fucking workers if you want. So yeah, that should actually work out just fine. And then I guess if I do decide, I think I should just move this, to be honest. I think I should just pull this whole thing out by a couple of... tiles. And then copy and paste this. I think we are good to paste it here. Oh, that actually unlocks a pretty neat extra bit that I didn't even think about until I just saw the opportunity here. I have some sort of like interesting infatuation with shared bases. The idea that like you could have a small area of map be leveraged by multiple players of opposing teams. For some reason, I'm really a fan of that idea. And I can see a world where I put one up against the ridge over here. And then you can kind of leverage that. If you can take this area, you can kind of pick apart that general vicinity. But I'm a little concerned that it threads the needle a little too close to the yellow player that's up there. So we shall see how it goes, I guess. That's not what I wanted to do. Grab that. Let's test out our ideas. We sure have a lot of them anyway. Okay. Going well. This should be another tile. Oh, I guess not that one. Try that one. Yo, yo, sermon. It's popping. Just slapped together a bit of terrain over here. It's a little bit more manual labor than it ought to be because Blizzard was really bad with tile sets, and we don't have access to an open source competent editor. So, in order to actually place everything that didn't originally come with the game that I've added by editing it in Photoshop, like this cliff face, basically, like this doesn't exist in the normal tile set. This road doesn't exist in this tile set normally. Stuff like that, I have to place it by hand. So it takes a little bit longer than it ought to, really. But I've cleared the way for 2 new bases, so I'll start expanding them now. That's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, it's perfect. I guess it is a bit rich of me to call anything manual labor when I'm placing tiles in a program. It's tough work, man. My hands, I never recover. Not crazy fan of that. Okay, now we're talking. Now we're cooking with gas. So we got what? 11, and then 1 gas. Guess the gas can be down here. Or can it? Yeah, sure. What did you work on today? Were you on broadcast today? I was thinking about throwing a double gas over here, but of course. Oh, yeah, I guess it does fit. Believe it or not. That's crazy. That's pretty funny. Oh, is that corporate gig from a while ago, or is that something else that was also an amateur Russian thing? Well, I say amateur Russians and they start arresting me, of course. Let's just confirm. Oh, yes, of course, because this isn't enough of a fucking change. I now have to figure out why the Blizzard lard code decides to... Okay, well, I guess that fixes it. What a fucking disaster. Who made this? Okay, interesting. So here's the manual labor I was talking about. I'm taking these from a file you are not actually able to see, but that does make it slightly easier. So, worth it. Is this what I need? No. But that's not what I need either, apparently. Oh, I guess it's that. How could I have known? There we go. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for checking in anyway. I'll catch you next time. There we go. A nice little subtle guidance. It's a pretty good courtyard area. I guess I can throw some lava in here, especially since the high lava by default does not actually block pathfind or buildability anymore. So we can pull this one back in. There we go. Kind of want to make it some like sort of a fan out here. Maybe imply that it's disappearing in that direction as well, which is pretty cool. I'll fix up the individual tiles later since these are a disaster, aren't they? I guess it's not that bad. At first glance, it was pretty bad, but seems to be okay now. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, so far we've obviously got these two bases, and we're naturally moving in the direction of this yellow player, and also providing a nice multi-leveled area over here, which is pretty cool, I think. So nice. I am satisfied with that progress. That does kind of resign this area down here to not have any bases, and we don't really have a proper natural for this Protoss player, who maybe that factors into his playstyle somehow. Maybe he plays a safe one base opening or something, or a super fast expo to try to like just rip the band-aid off, so to speak, and establish two bases early on. I don't really know which. I guess the problem is that he could theoretically be attacked from all players, actually. This guy might be the most vulnerable player in the entire map when you really factor that in, because the two Protoss on this right side can attack him, both Terrans on the bottom can attack him, and the Zerg can attack him. So that has to be factored in, and that's why I think it would make sense to give him a pretty safe, like, primary base in, back here or something. I guess the only contingency there is then I would want this yellow player to have to move a little bit more forward. And even so, the natural base placement that you would probably think of is you would probably want to throw it in some something over here. So like you'd probably want to put his natural like above him or whatever, but then it only gets engaged with by the Protoss. I would prefer like a base that they fight over that's like maybe on either side of this magma strip would be that. And then I think as well, this is going to be structure. I was thinking maybe moving this block of terrain up into the right slightly to leave room for a base below the structure that can be the natural for this player that still is a little bit more attackable from the Zerg coming from mid or from the bottom left Terran coming from directly south. It would probably still be relatively defensible, but it would at least allow this player to expand in that direction and free up a base or area over here to not be really in contention by the same logic. So I guess we will make a move on that front. I've got to develop my plan for oh, I see. Hey. Okay. The other component is, of course, I will probably need some negative space here to ensure the just proper spacing of an army, to be honest, but also to make sure that there's no funny business with the res area identification. I guess the main concern, actually, now that I look at this, is it doesn't really afford any real advantage. It's not a pass-through, so you can't use it to elevate your army as en route. It's only actually useful for sieging this guy. Maybe that's fine, because this guy would fall and then you would try to attack this guy, but it just seems odd to even have it here, since it's not an army pass-through point. And I think making it an army pass-through point would be constraining that a little bit too much. So I think actually we'll just cancel that entirely, and we will go ahead and do our best to attempt at fixing up some of the tiles that subsequently got messed up. So otherwise, we leave plenty of build space for this guy. We've got all sorts of shit going on here. Again, a major concern is whether or not the start location will start taking possession of this stuff, but thankfully it is a start location, so it can be resolved pretty much automatically by default or whatever. I guess it does kind of fuck up any sort of melee styled play on this map, but that's not what it's designed for anyway. So, and not something that unfortunately it's just not realistic to even try to fix that in this case. Kind of follow a similar route, I think, to the lava stuff that I did up in the high ground area where it kind of thins out. I just find that ends up looking pretty nice generally, so get all of the spindly little ends and see where that goes. Weird. Okay. Again, we would have two bases up here. We have to figure out what we're doing here. I think the best method for this is actually what I was talking about earlier, where we just take... All right. Depends on as well if whether or not I don't even know if I want to make this a structure one. I think it's kind of interesting instead if it ends up being on dirt instead of asphalt. So it would be structure. What I meant to say there is whether or not that structure would blend with asphalt. I think it'll just blend with dirt instead because that gives us a little bit of a like two massive or large scale structure complexes, but one of them has the asphalt and the other one doesn't. As a way of immediately looking at the map and knowing where you are just by seeing what's on your screen before you even look at the minimap or whatever. Which probably doesn't make that much of a difference, to be honest. I think most people are pretty used to looking at the minimap a lot. But it is something that I try to adhere to in my content all the same. 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's technically wider on one side, but it looks fine to the eye test IMO. So I think we'll keep that. Getting a lot of spam calls lately. Would be nice if that didn't happen. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is also one that's just going to be up by 1. So we'll have bottom left, bottom right, top right, and then this will be where the resources are. I think that makes sense because this one also faces the back angle where there's not really going to be that much. You can wrap around this if you want, but there's not really any gameplay over there besides wrapping around, which is probably going to be exceedingly niche anyway. So that's my logic there anyway. Right, and then again, we did from the back 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll just make sure this lines up. Yeah, seems to. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So it needs one more. Okay. So that should be a straight shooter. Yeah. Nice. Should probably remove those and re-add them as doodads or something, because the fact that they block pathfinding is so ridiculous. Okay. Let's get it done. Since this guy's probably one of the safest AIs in the game, I'm going to probably fuck him on gas, at least in his main. And I don't really need to worry too much about turret room, so there you go. You get 1, homie. Move that aside just to make sure no masons get trapped behind. That'll be a placeholder spot anyway. I obviously need an actual tile that's built on top of structure, but until I get that from DF, I guess I'll chill out in that respect. What's really nice is, I mean, it's not nice that I have to go, but what's nice about having to go pretty soon is that I know what my next move is, so I'll be that much more pumped to like come back to this as soon as possible and continue working on it, which is nice. I've had pretty good motivation overall. My sleep schedule's kind of fucked today, but aside from that, like everything's going really well. I've had really good motivation since that dad card that I put together a while back. A couple days ago. So this should be okay. In fact, miraculously, those side tiles didn't even get fucked, so that's pretty impressive. Almost like it's a functional product or something. It isn't. It's not. Almost like it is, though. No, we knew it couldn't last. Oops. This isn't an incredibly defensible natural, but it is a natural, so that's what matters. Let's do player 6. Actually, let's go back to the terrain real quick. I'll add a little bit of a lovely magma over here. There's a bit of a buffer. Okay. Sure. And maybe I grab this whole thing and up into the right one. I guess up and to the right too, actually, but point is that it leaves a bit more maneuverability between this stuff. Okay, and then yeah, we're gonna have 2 bases over here, and then at that point it'll be pretty easy, I think, to focus my attention on the top right. But we'll leave that for the next session, be it live or just me working on it offline. And that will be the stream. I know I didn't even crack 2 hours today. It was a bit of a shorter one, but we got a pretty good amount of work done. We obviously reorganized some stuff on the ability side for the mod, and I'm looking pretty certainly looking forward to working on this map some more. I feel like it's coming along quite well. So the last thing I'll do as my parting shot is jump over into player 6 and place his goddamn workers. There you go. And I did want to... I wanted to give this guy a second rack since he's not on gas at all. Although then you have to wonder how he got the Hurricanes. Maybe he just has 4 Mavericks. Whatever. Not that big of a deal, but wanted to slap that around. And then, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for now. So I will obviously be catching you guys very shortly for another one of these streams and another one of some other content. Check out Elo Heaven tomorrow, and I'll see you guys very soon.